Hey everyone, welcome to Sportsline. I am your host, Frank Wolf from WNYathletics.com. Really appreciate you joining us today. We should have a pretty good episode. We've got some pretty good guests coming on board after a long weekend. I really couldn't wait to get back into the studio and cut up another episode of High School Sportsline. I reached out to a number of people in the high school sports realm, if you will, to try and get them on this week. And we've got some really good guests for you to look forward to today. I'm going to be having Brett Banker on. He is the KenTon athletic director. He's in his 29th year now. Also going to have Mike O'Brien in. He is an official with IAABO. He's going to be joining me. He's a great guy. Actually graduated the same year I did. He's been a state trooper. Went to Buff State and got into officiating pretty much right after his playing days were over. And he's encouraging you to get out there. For all you guys that might not be playing basketball after this year, or maybe you're finishing up your college career, they have a call for officials, so I think it'd be pretty cool for us to hear from Mike and hear what he has to say. So I'm looking forward to playing that for you. We had some information, some tweets that went out today that I thought maybe also we would share. One of them happened to be the tweet from Robert Zayas of New York State Public High School. Dr. Zayas, he sent a tweet out earlier, and basically it said that the June Regents were canceled, which we know. We found that out. Schools will be closed through the 29th. That was announced. So Robert Zayas, a little more optimistic today that we may get some kind of spring season in. I also got I talked a little bit with Pete Schneider about what that meant for the Monsignor Martins, and it wasn't much of anything just yet. They may have something, but not really ready to divulge into what they may or may not have exactly. Another tweet that was out there, last week you'll remember I had Kyrie Demos from the Niagara Gazette in studio, and he was starting to work on a project with the rest of the guys up there about the Newfane wrestling team. So I thought that was something that we should post out there. If you don't get a copy of the Gazette, you should be able to read it online. But he had a nice little thing out there that I wanted you guys to kind of remember. If you remember that interview, he did mention it. So I want to post that link out there. And just check that out on Twitter. He's got the other story about Roddy Gale from Newport and what he was up to during this pandemic right now. So I thought it was cool to get those stories up there. Patrick Nagy from the Amherst B last week, he put out their all-girls team. The 2019-20 all-B girls first team is out there, so you could read that. If you pick up a copy of the Amherst B, that's out there right now. You may want to check that out. And the last one was Corey Desiderio. He was working on the latest issue of The Sun, a number of high school writers, the who's who of high school writers, if you will, Melissa Brody, Jonah Bronstein, Dave Rickey, and Joe Kraus have stories in this week's Sun, as well as Corey Desiderio's story as well, and how they are doing with the whole pandemic, and it's a pretty good issue that's out there right now. I got a copy, and I think you should pick one up too. So without further ado, what I want to do is get into our guests. I'm going to go to Brett Banker first, and then we're going to hear from Mike O'Brien soon after that. So stay tuned and enjoy these interviews with Brett Banker and Mike O'Brien on
Morning, high school sports fans. I am now joined by Mr. Brett Banker. He is the athletic director of the KenTon School District. He's been there since, I believe, 91, 92. He's in his 28th year, just finished his 28th year. He'll be able to clear that up for us as I introduce. Mr. Banker, how are you this morning?
Great, Frank. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Is it 28 or you just finished your 28th?
Finishing 28. It's not over yet.
It certainly isn't. This is probably the craziest thing you've seen, I want to say, in those 28 years.
I would think so. It's been absolutely devastating for us. 1,000 years ago, you get into this profession, help kids out. And run programs for kids and create programs for kids. And, I hear from our seniors, our spring student athletes via email. Several have reached out looking for updates. And honestly, you can almost feel or hear their tears when they're typing out that email, and they're very frustrated.
Yeah.
It's something that, obviously we have to go through and be cognizant of how to keep people safe. My job is to keep those kids safe and run programs for them. And that's what I hope to do even this spring still. But it's certainly unique.
So we've been doing the Sportsline show. It's about a week old now. And one of our first guests actually happened to be Zach Boyce, one of your spring, fall, winter athletes, four-sport athletes, really. Probably one of the best athletes that Ken West has produced in quite some time. He was our very first guest. And you could tell how, frustrated he was. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's you as the AD, his baseball coach, Johnny Haynes, his football coach, Johnny Haynes, his basketball coach, Mike. There's nothing they can do about it. This is above anybody's pay grade. We've never had to deal with anything like this before, and it's just a wait and see period that we're in here. And there's a good chance that we won't be getting back to the spring sports season. So I've wanted to get those senior athletes on this program so that they can tell their stories. And I also want to hear from ADs such as yourself, who's been around for quite a while. Brett, you're in your 29th year now. You're at that time where you could walk away if you wanted to, but I can't see you doing that, not at a time like this with a district the size of yours.
Well, first of all, I listened to the Zach Boyce interview, and you did a very good job with that. Zach is a model. He's a role model, but he's a model for even adults. He, comes from his parents and family, just a great family. And Zach is, he has frustrations. He's passionate. I know that I saw the email, and he admitted to it on your show that he had emailed Mr. Bavino, our superintendent, weeks ago about the spring season. I'll tell Zach, and I tell every student athlete that reaches out, and coach actually, that, until I'm told otherwise, I'll work until they tell me I can't relative to this spring season. But personally, in terms of exiting, we said this off the air, I don't mean to say, we're all replaceable. And I'm fully cognizant of that. On the other hand, it is a big job. It's bigger than most. And we have a building project that's supposed to start next spring behind Kenmore East. I would feel shameful if I left in the next 2 months without trying to speak to that, without doing my best for people like Zach. And I would feel I couldn't deal with myself if I left. So I guess I'm year to year at this point, but it won't be this year. I need to stay and help solve the district's issues.
Good. I know a lot of people are getting a huge sigh of relief after hearing you say that. And, I was there in '93 as a graduate. We never crossed paths back in those days unless you walked by the in-school suspension room, which I don't think you ever did. You'd have no reason to be down there.
Well, back in those days, this is only my fourth year in a school.
Yeah.
Back in those days, I was housed either in the administration building.
Even further away from the troubled kids.
I was at the Sheridan building for at least 15 years, and then up on the second floor of transportation. But so you got lucky. I didn't see you.
I think you did deal with the wrath of my mother one time, though. We won't get it. We won't talk about that.
I may have.
No doings of your own. But in all seriousness, this past March, you were supposed to have I believe you were called the 2020 Vision as the New York State Athletic Administrators Association president for the year of 2019. You were going to wrap that tenure up with that annual meeting out there in Albany with all the other ADs from around the state. And because of the corona pandemic, that's been waived. You did not have that. We did receive an email that you have been reelected, asked to stay on as president, and then you will head that up again next year in 2021.
That's right. I mean, it's a 1 year, it's a 5 or 6 year commitment when you start as vice president, move up, but you move up every year, and it's supposed to culminate with hosting the state conference for athletic directors. And my local committee, how it works is whoever the president is, he or she creates a local committee, in this case, Section 6, obviously, of athletic directors to put everything together. We had upwards of 18 speakers coming. We had 33 ADs from Section 6 who had jobs, which is the most we've ever had. We had 320 registrants, which would have been a record for the state. And unfortunately, we were up there a week in advance of the conference, which was supposed to be March 16th through 20th. We were there a week prior, meeting with the hotel staff about meals and rooms and everything, and we were still on at that point. And things changed. So I appreciate the AAA, we call it, extending my term as president 1 more year so that Section 6 can put that conference back on.
Nice.
It's actually in Saratoga Springs every year. We had a great conference, and I had a great committee. Tim Slade was involved, Pat Burke, retired from Lockport, Todd Sutelek from Lockport, Mark DeFilippo from the ECIC office, Jeff Roth from Wilson. That was my core team. And then, as I mentioned, we had over 30 other ADs that had other jobs. Yeah. So we'll put another good conference together. And
do you expect to have that same team for 2021?
I do. I've already reached out to all those individuals, heard back from most, and I've heard back from, I'd say, 14 out of 18 speakers that have agreed to come back, which is key.
Now, you are involved with hockey quite a bit. You, in fact, when Mark DeFilippo was missed the 2018 hockey championships when he was recuperating from a surgery, you stepped in and took charge of that event. We were supposed to have that again here this past winter, just about a month ago, actually, a month to the day almost. Buses were to be pulling into Harbor Center. How much did the community, Western New York, lose by not being able to have that one event, that one big weekend here? How detrimental was it? Do you think that was to Section 6 in Western New York?
I mean, certainly there's a loss of income. There's a loss of funding coming in. We host a Friday night banquet for all 8 schools, which you attended and interviewed kids. That was to be at the Statler. We lost a little bit on the down payment there, understandably. It was so late that the food was already ordered, so we understand that. But more importantly, we have 8 schools, roster size of 22 to 24 kids, coaches, families, and parents that lost out. We can overcome the economics. Pagula Sports and Entertainment, they've always supported that bid. It fills their hotel, fills their arena, sells their concessions. So yes, financially there's a hit, but more importantly for me, again, we'll get over that at some point. It may take 3 to 5 years, but I am very sensitive to the rosters of 8 schools that couldn't come.
Do you think because of this unforeseen pandemic that those districts, those sections that were awarded those championships, they'll be extended a year?
The championships?
Yeah, like Western New York was due to have the hockey.
Okay.
Other sections were due to have bowling in Syracuse. Will those be extended a year, or do you think they're going to lose out on having, because when they award them, they give you 3-year blocks.
Right.
So I'm wondering, do you think New York State would extend in light of the coronavirus wiping out these championships? Do you think they'll extend that a year?
I think it depends on where you are in that 3-year contract. As you know, we're on the second of 2 3-year contracts.
Yeah.
This was year 5 for us. We have one more on the calendar in Section 6. I think if you're in your 3rd year of a contract, knowing Robert Zayas and working with Robert and his staff, they're all excellent, I would think that the fair thing to do would be to reach out to those individual sections and allow them that opportunity. Some may decide not to for whatever reason, but I would expect Robert and his staff to offer that, to extend it another year.
During your tenure as the KenTon AD, you have overseen the Kenmore West for one, the soccer fields, softball, baseball fields there that were put in with the beautiful dugouts and the press boxes. You were thinking about us, weren't you? When you originally did.
Get you out of the rain.
But Crosby Field, major upgrades. Sparky Adams Field, major upgrades, and still more to come. But you were also instrumental at the beginning of getting the Girls Fed Hockey Championship, Girls Fed Hockey League started, among other things. What would you say at Ken West Gym, the Ken East Gym? There's been a number of updates and big projects that came during the last 28 years. Of all the projects and things of that nature, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of expanding opportunities for kids. Being a proponent or an advocate for things like ice hockey. I know you mentioned girls ice hockey, but when I came, we didn't have boys ice hockey either. So you're talking about 3 hockey teams, East, West boys, and the combined girls team. There's girls lacrosse. We were starting year 1 this year. Boys lacrosse, we were starting year 2 this year. Just expanding opportunities. When I first came, there was no modified program at all. We added 19 activities and extramurals, which did exist, but we added, I'd say, 12 or 13 modified sports at 3 middle schools. At the time, Kenmore Middle was open, as you know. So just, I look at that, starting 13 modified sports times 3 schools times, 15 to 18 kids in every roster, and I start to do the math. And that's what I'm most proud
of. You've got a couple of wingmen, or women, I should say, that help you along. How instrumental is your office, the girls in your office? Who are they? Why don't you introduce them and how much they mean to you and keep you in line and in check, I should say.
Yeah, well, I've been with Leah Canistero. She's my #1 administrative assistant for 10 years, I guess. She started with me actually at the Sheridan building, made the way to transportation and down to West. She's been great. She was named the AAA Secretary of the Year a few years back. She brings a lot in the way of technology and just organization. She's that tough first person that you see when you come in the office. And tough, by tough, I mean she can decide who needs to see me right away and who doesn't. She's great with the kids that come in. That's been the best thing in moving into the office. We have 2 part-timers. We have Dina Diamond, who is our clerk, who does all the purchasing and ordering and paying of officials. She does a great job with that. And new to our office is Marie Whitney. Jessica Schwarzkopf was this person, but Marie Whitney came in and is handling the what we call the Encore office, which has always been named the Encore office. I'm not sure why, but it's really the rental agency for the district. If you need a field, an auditorium, a gym, a classroom, a pool, you go through Marie. So those 3 ladies do tremendous work for us and for our kids and for our coaches and for me. Also over at Kenmore East, we have Jim Badgley, who the district was kind enough to give him a part-time position as a teacher, and as my assistant athletic director, he heads up Ken Easton Franklin really for me, and he has some help over there with Linda Baumgartner. So it's a great team. I have liaisons at each school. At Franklin, I have Rob Decker, and at Hoover, I have John DeCarlos, who will help with details since I'm not physically in those buildings. And then at East, we have a longtime helper in Ralph Critelli, and at West, Jim Rowe. He handles some hiring of supervision and so forth. So we have a good team.
So you and I have really only got to know each other probably the last 4 to 5 years. But our paths first crossed somewhere around 1996, 97, when I think you noticed a scrappy baseball team that used to practice at Longfellow without any insurance, without any care in the world for public property. This bad news Bears baseball team breaking windows and leaving water bottles all over Longfellow. That was our baseball team. And I remember getting an email from you. Somehow you got my email asking for our insurance.
Yeah.
I think you would have been happy if we would have just picked up after ourselves.
Well, society's changed so much. I had to look out for you. I had to look out for the district. My job in those situations. I know you're kidding, but
I have to go back. I want to go back, and I don't know if I'll find them, but I'm going to try and see if I can find some of our first emails back and forth that are easily well over a decade old, 20 years old. Has it been that long? What year is it?
Yeah.
But they go back at least 20 years. And they weren't fire and brimstone. They were just saying, Wolf, you have no right to be on this field, get lost, or send me an insurance certificate.
Well, I knew you were the type to sue us if you broke your ankle rounding first base. So I had to protect my superintendent, my board of ed, right?
Yes. But, so we do go back even further, but it's always been a pleasure working with you. This year you allowed us you hosted a girls basketball invitational for us this past winter. I wanted to thank you for that. We had a great time.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, West is such a nice facility. It's such a it's like a small college gym. People really like coming there, and we like to host. We have a good team that hosts events there. It's
a nice location too. It's if you've got teams coming up from Orchard Park, Hamburg, Dunkirk, and then teams coming down from like Star Point, Wilson. It's kind of right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Easy access, and the facilities are second to none. They're a lot different than when I was there, but I love what you've done with the school, in particular the athletics program. I think a lot of those kids have benefited from someone like you being there. It's been a fun ride, and hopefully it continues for a little longer, as long as you want, really. At some point, I think you said you were going to come and do play-by-play with WNY Athletics when you're done ADing.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about it. I have a rich history of doing that, 35 and 40 years ago. So
we could do
television
a
and radio
at one point. Banker and Wolf.
As long as Banker comes first, right?
But it's your son.
Oh.
We'll see. We'll see. I think it'd be fun, but
I'd be interested in that.
We were really looking forward to getting in that baseball and softball field this year. I know Tom Prince was super excited about it. It's gonna be tough. Let's just say that I'm assuming I'm a realist, Brett. I'm going to say that we're probably not going to see that spring season, but if they deem that you can start having groups of people, let's say in July, would you expect Kenmore West to be a site? Would that be open for business for, say, a travel baseball league or something, or the softball field? Would they be able to take advantage of that field if the New York says, hey, you can gather, you can have leagues and things of that nature? Do you expect those fields to be used?
Well, first, like I said earlier, I'm going to try to the bitter end to get our own team schedule. I've reached out to the state, and other people have too. I'm not the only one. We've talked about, to me, one of the worst case scenarios we'd have to cancel sectionals cancel the state championships. But that would allow us possibly to have a single round in the Niagara Frontier League of 8 games. Waive the date. There's, people may not know, but there's a deadline, or there's a date, I should say, where all play has to stop in each season. I don't know specifically what that date is, but normally it's the day of the state championship. So let's have the state waive that date, allow us to have an 8-game schedule in the Niagara Frontier League, and let us play into late June, maybe up until July 4th, maybe, something like that. We need about 6 weeks. We need, for the safety of our kids and their arms and their legs as track athletes, we need about 2 to 3 weeks of practice. And then let's do a 2 or 3 week season. And even if it takes us into July, I'll be fighting for that, advocating for that as long as I can. In terms of teams, that play out there, Johnny Haynes has a Legion team, and he uses that field. He pays and rents for that field. So there are groups out there. There are groups there's travel softball groups out there led by Kim Leggett, used to be led by Matt Chimera. They rent those facilities. So they're used, and we'll see what happens. I'm hoping they're used again this year.
We are too. But I want to thank you for your time. Hope to have you. I'm assuming we're going to have you on again at some point. But we thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming on the Sportsline today. And
Thank you, Frank.
you got the beard going. I couldn't do that. I couldn't grow that beard if I tried. You could give me a 4-week head start.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics. Call our Buffalo office today for an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs.
Welcome back to WNY High School Sportsline. My next guest is Mr. Mike O'Brien. I should say Officer O'Brien. But Mike O'Brien is my guest. He is a 1993 graduate of Kenmore East High School. He is the all-time leading scorer there in basketball. He had a great career there. Was a sectional champion. Tortured us at Kenmore West for at least a season. Went on to Buff State, 4-year starter there, won multiple championships. And now he's since 2000, he's been a New York State Trooper. And I believe since 98, he's been an official. So you probably see Mr. O'Brien, all you basketball players out there and parents, on the court, running up and down. This is not the guy I want to be shouting at, though. Not that he's going to pull you over on the way out, but this is a guy who knows the game of basketball in and out. His father was a coach for many years. His brother is currently the coach at Niagara Wheatfield. But Mike, thank you very much for spending some time with me today.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Mike, I don't really remember you back then. I graduated in 93 myself. The first time our paths crossed was somewhere around 2003. Right around Utica, New York. And I'm sure you don't remember exactly, but I'll paint the picture for you. There was a Monte Carlo, I believe 2002 Monte Carlo, speeding 90 westbound from Albany. Actually, Long Island, New York. I was coming up from Long Island with a couple of my cousins. We went down to visit, and you observed us at probably a high rate of speed. And felt the need to pull us over as a public service, I'm sure. And when you took a look at my license, you asked me if I was east or west. And I'm west, 90 west. And you're like, no, bonehead. Did you go to Kenmore East or Kenmore West? And I didn't understand at first, but that's how we first met. And we had a good laugh, and we've had a lot of laughs and since then. And thankfully, you let me off with a warning. I thank you very much for that. Still to this day.
That's good, Frank. I appreciate all you're doing with your program here and trying to get as much notoriety to these schools, these athletes, especially during this crazy time that we're living in right now. that, these poor spring athletes that haven't had the opportunity to maybe finish their senior season in any sport, male or female. And, it's good that you can see that you're trying to get as much notoriety as possible to them. So I appreciate that. It's a good feeling.
Yes. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And, Mike, you had an incredible career at Kenmore East, being the all-time leading scorer there. Now that would put you about 15th or 16th spot at Kenmore West.
It might.
That whole East-West thing never stops. It just never stops. It's in our blood. Actually, this year, you're a Hall of Famer at Kenmore East, and I think this fall sometime, a couple of your former teammates should be getting into the Hall of Fame. I'm hearing Scott Wilcox's name and Mike Malotte's name.
Yep.
Should be getting into the Hall of Fame this fall for Kenmore East.
I sit on the committee there, and we'll have to go through a process this year, and go through everybody's accolades. And Jim Badgley, the coach at Kenmore East now, who was at West before, he was the freshman coach when I was at East playing, is on the committee as well. And we go through all with Mr. Banker, the athletic director, and we go through all those applicants. And we got a great committee. We sit down and really discuss and pick the best candidates we can.
You guys do a great job with that, and it's not an easy job. Why did you become an official?
It's long story short. I was my senior year. I was playing at Fredonia, Buff State at Fredonia, and the former sheriff, Patrick Galvin, who was state police captain at the time, he was refereeing my basketball game. So he's inbounding the ball to me, and I didn't know who he was, and says to me, "Hey, what are you doing next year after you graduate?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to look for a teaching job. I got my degree in special ed and elementary education." He goes, "You don't want to teach. You want to be a state trooper." And I said, "Really?" And after the game, he introduces himself again and says that he's a state police captain and so forth. And I reached out to my father, and my dad's like, "Oh, yeah, he's a state police captain. He's a basketball official." And I reached back out to Pat, and he got me a bunch of the information for the trooper exam. And I took the exam, and approximately about 2 years later, while I was teaching actually at Start Point High School for Gil Licata, I went to the State Police Academy. So,
wow.
Yeah, kind of a funny story.
That is. And I'm going to check in with, I know Pat. I'm going to check in and see how he's doing, and maybe he'll come in and do a little segment with us, and maybe he remembers that conversation. That'd be pretty cool.
I joke about it with him sometimes. I say, "Hey, thanks for giving me the ball that day and bounding the ball. Thanks, appreciate it."
Changed your life. You changed your life. Changed the direction.
It did. The state police have. I have no regrets. I'm glad I switched careers. It's been a great career. It's a great career for an athlete. Staying in shape. Dealing with the public. You're on a team. I mean, we're 4,000 strong. There's no better team. So that comes into a lot of play as well. I like working with different guys, all different walks of life. So it's as an athlete, it's a perfect job for an athlete, I would say.
There's a number of Western New York high school parents and coaches and just assistant coaches that I believe also are in law enforcement. Do you work with Mike Catanzaro?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen him. I believe I've seen him with you one morning not too long ago.
I actually came on with his brother, Mark.
What's that?
His brother, Mark, came on with me.
Okay.
Because I believe Mike's a little younger than us. But okay. I worked with Mike for a short time up in Niagara County for a little while. Mike's an excellent police officer, excellent trooper. And I believe he does some coaching too.
Yeah, great wrestler. Yes,
great wrestler.
Connected to Will North there. I see him. He works really hard.
See, that's another athlete and coach.
Yes. Yes. You've done some pretty big games, though. I mean, you have done state finals. You've done sectional finals. You did that. I don't know what the year of it, but you did do the high school McDonald's All-Star game, did you not? The All-American game?
I did do that. And, Frank, I'll be honest with you. I have been very lucky that I've been given a lot of opportunity, probably more opportunity than a lot of guys will get. And I'm very fortunate for that. That McDonald's All-American game was given to me by my former college basketball assigner, Jimmy Hutter, who I'm sure you're familiar with. He was an NCAA official, high school official, NBA official, friends with my dad, went to college with my father, actually. I think he was a cyclist, actually, in the Olympics. But Jim gave me that opportunity, and it was a great opportunity. It's something that I can say that not many people will get an opportunity to do.
Approximately how many fans do you think were there for that game that you called?
I'm going to say the United Center was pretty much sold out.
Wow.
For that game.
Would that be the largest audience you ever worked under?
Yes. Plus, it was nationally televised on ESPN. Yeah. So there's no bigger game than that.
Nice. Did you save anything from that date? I mean, I know you have pictures that you've sent me, but is there anything like that you've saved from that?
Yes, I have a basketball that's signed by all the players that day that were in the game. I have obviously I taped the game, and then I have just some apparel. I still have my sneakers and bag. They really do a great job. Alonzo Mourning, I believe, is still the president or chairperson of that committee that still puts on that game, with Jason Williams as well. And they do a great job. They really, really put the athlete first. And not many people know this, but there's a women's game before that as well.
Okay.
That is just an awesome game to watch as well. Just top-notch female basketball players. It would probably start on most high school boys teams here.
I would imagine.
And have scoring records.
Absolutely. I got a chance to work a Sabres game in the United Center this past fall. But I mean, talk about a building you walk into. You got Michael Jordan's name and number everywhere. That's hallowed grounds right there.
I know. When you come up, you pull up front. You have the Michael Jordan statue, and you grew up a Michael Jordan fan like I did, and a Bulls fan. And then you look across the street, and about 2-3 blocks down, you see the bar. What is it? Is it the Goat, or is it the Goat? I think.
I don't know anything about any bars in Chicago, Mike.
Well, it's a bar restaurant, from the Saturday Night Live episode with the Bears, where they have the burgers. Yeah. It's kind of funny. So it brings you right into Chicago.
What would you say to an athlete right now that may not play? He might have seen his last basketball game, but he knows the game. I mean, how should that kid attack becoming an official? We're short on officials, so how would you pitch that kid?
We are very short. We are looking for a ton of high school basketball athletes that have played the game and understand the game. Just because you decide not to further your basketball career into college, which you might be able to, but you want to focus on other things. Refereeing basketball is a great way to just pick up that void. I think it's better than playing pickup. You're actually getting paid to do it. You're a part of the game. You're a supervisor of the game. And it's like you're a 6th or 7th man out there. I mean, your job is to supervise. And if you don't have to get involved, don't get involved. That's what makes it great. But your community relations with it as well. I mean, between coaches and teachers and players and even parents. I know parents have been taking a bad rap lately, but there are a lot of good parents out there.
Talk about the opportunities that have come for yourself from entering the world of officiating.
Oh, man.
Besides the All-American game.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's friendships. And I'll talk about a guy that you're going to have on very soon after me is Benji Bloomin, who is basically in every Hall of Fame there is in Western New York, has donated his life to community service, has done 20,000 refereed 20,000 basketball games, and is still to this day giving back to all the high school basketball officials. So, you try to file suit with a guy like that, and I couldn't even get a toe in his shoe if I wanted to. But you take mentorship like that, and you try to give it back. And what it does, it comes down to relationships. At the high school level, the college level, I have some of the best friends from across the country now because of refereeing basketball. And not only refereeing basketball, it also has opened up other doors as well, maybe employment, after I retire from the state police, or, who knows what it can bring you. But there's so many different, your network of people is just so large. You almost have anything at the tip of your fingers, whether it's banking or a doctor or a therapist or, an attorney, a police officer. I mean, you guys are all connected. It's a great way to, go through life. I mean, I think a lot of athletes shut down after high school, and they look to fill that void, and they find themselves on a Tuesday night in a community center at 11 o'clock trying to play basketball still, 10 years after the fact, and they're hurt and they're beat up and they don't want to do it anymore. And it becomes upsetting and frustrating. To referee a sport could be anything: umpire baseball, volleyball, swimming. To be a part of that still, and still be able to be a part of that, that's through officiating.
What's it feel like walking into a high school gym, like a Kenmore East again, or a Kenmore West, or a Hamburg, Star Point, wherever they send you? What's that feeling like for an official, 25, 27 years removed from graduating?
You don't feel removed at all. You feel like you're still playing. That's what makes it great, Frank. Yeah. I don't feel I've never stopped playing. I mean, I still feel like that kid in 9th grade when, Marv Madison gave me an opportunity to play varsity basketball. There's still that excitement. When you go through your pregame, you talk about the type of game you're probably going to have, and who's coaching, who's playing, what your job is. It's just like playing. There isn't any different. It's no different.
Being an official, you work your way up. I mean, they're not going to throw you in the sectional final game day one. You got to work your way up. Is that the hardest part, or is that the easiest part, to kind of start at a slower pace? Maybe some of those youth league games, like you started playing at the Tonawanda Boys Club. Maybe they send you there, or Blessed Sacrament, or somewhere like that. That's where you got to go. You got to pay your dues before they move you up. Is that the hardest part for people?
Well, I think that you're getting also a different type of athlete, a different type of official these days, and that's just with times change. When I first started officiating, I was still playing basketball at Buffalo State and working at the Gloria J. Parks Community Center for Kevin Ferguson, who was a Division I basketball official, who I'm sure you know who he is. Everybody does. So Kevin said to me, hey, why don't you start reffing all these 12 and under games and 10 and under games and 14 and under games, and every Saturday morning and Sunday morning or Tuesday night. That's all I did. And a lot of it I did for free because I was already working at the center. So I wasn't, paid any extra monies or anything like that. And then working rec leagues, seeing different plays. The biggest thing with an official is to see plays. You got to see plays. There's no better place to see plays than in a community center with rec players that are playing recreational, or to younger kids traveling, or, AYB, the Amherst Youth Basketball League, is a great place to referee and great place to start. But you have to go everywhere. And sometimes guys don't want to go everywhere, or girls, they don't want to go everywhere. And you got to go everywhere. Yeah. And that's how you get your name out there. You ref in every league you can, and you will get noticed, and you will get good ratings, and somebody will see you, and you will move up the ladder. That's how it works.
So, Mike, all these years doing officiating basketball games, I got to ask you, who are the top 3 to 5 players you've come across? And is there a team or teams that you would say that was probably the best team I've ever officiated from a talent level?
I'm going to try to compare teams and players, but the best high school game I've ever had, and I think it was just the makeup of the whole game and the 2 types of teams I had, was in 2002. I was officiating the state championships in Glens Falls. I had CBA, Christian Brothers Academy, out of Albany, and Mount Vernon out of Long Island. And you had an inner city team playing a suburban team. And I'll tell you, the first 6, 7 on Mount Vernon were going Division I. And
that's typical.
And CBA had about 4 Division I players, and 3 of them were one was going to Duke to play quarterback and was made up just of a bunch of athletes. And they played two different types of games. And both coaches were outstanding. They coached their teams. We refereed. And you had two different game plans going. And the game ended up 48-46 or 48-45, which is probably right where CBA wanted it, but Mount Vernon won. And it was a semifinal game. And I thought it was a final. So it was a semifinal game. And the place was packed, was sold out, and it was a two-man game still at that time. And I roughed it with a guy named Perkins out of Syracuse. And we still, when I see him this day, who still refs college basketball, we still talk about that game. Wow. Because it was just such an impact. But there's so many good players, Frank, every single year. And the great thing about reffing Division II and Division III basketball is you don't see the superstar that's coming out, that first team all Western New York player. You might lose track of him a little. But you know who I see all the time, and I like to give a lot of credit to? I give a lot of credit to those other kids. You know, when you have a team, you have that engine block that drives it. But you got the doors and the windshield, and you see those kids playing Division III and Division II basketball, and it's great to see the glow on their face because they're still playing. Sure. And they're still doing well. That's what's exciting about doing that level.
I got to ask you ever run across a referee, an official by the name of Charlie Seward?
Yes. Charlie does my insurance.
Does he really? I love Charlie. Charlie was one of my first basketball coaches.
Really?
Charlie is a great guy.
Class act, always has been, a professional, and I got nothing but good things to say about Charlie. I don't think anyone has a bad word to say about Charlie.
No, you can't possibly. They'll throw you out.
You're right, right.
But, yeah, Charlie was I believe he still does some officiating.
He does. Charlie still refs high school basketball.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't believe I haven't run into him yet in these 4 years. I have not. And I could get into arbiter and maybe, look for him, but I don't want to be that guy. But I'm hoping to run into him sooner just so I can heckle him. I wouldn't heckle you, Mike, but I would heckle Charlie if I could.
I know he's done a little bit less lately just because business is very busy for him, but he's still out there reffing.
He used to do my insurance.
Oh, he's perfect. I pick up the phone and call him. It's great.
He always returned my call. I had to leave him for family reasons. You know, if my brother does insurance and if I didn't go over there, then I probably wouldn't be able to see my nieces. So, but my brother never calls me back when I have a problem. You know, Charlie would call me back. Just kidding. He calls me back. But, Mike, I rib on my brother a lot. I got to imagine you rib on your brother every now and again.
Yeah, we when we all get together, you know, I have three brothers, so when we all get together, it can get a little crazy.
Well, let's talk about Eric for just a second. He's been up at Niagara Wheatfield. How often do you get a chance to officiate his games, and does he give you the business?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of schools and teams I can't have. You know,
Understood.
Growing up in Western New York and playing in Western New York, and my dad coaching, the list keeps getting longer and longer. So Eric is on that list, you know, along with Kenmore East and Iroquois, and you know, now Winslow North's probably on there. Chuck Swirsky, we played at Buffalo State. You know what I mean? Together. Well, he played ahead. He's a little older than I am, but he's a good friend, and you know, Bill Gorman's a good friend who is now a basketball official as well. So the list keeps growing. So hopefully maybe it slows down a little. If not, I'm not going to be able to have any games.
Well, isn't Gil back at Star Point?
Gil is back at Star Point. I am so happy for that man to jump back into coaching basketball. He's great at it, and he brings a lot of experience back for those kids.
Are you able to officiate Star Point games then?
I would do Star Point games. I taught there from 98 to 2000, but I think I would go back. I think it's been long enough. We have a rule. You got to be out at least 5 years before you can go back and do your alma mater. I mean, I would never go back and do Kenmore East, but that's a little too close for.
What if you do the alumni game? Would they let you officiate the alumni game?
They would definitely let me officiate the alumni game. I'm not playing in it, I'll tell you that.
All right, no problem. Mike, what are you doing now these days? I mean, outside of officiating and when you're not at work, talk about the family.
I'll tell you what, I did up my schedule this year and blocked a lot of dates, actually. My son is played freshman basketball at St. Joe's in Gabe Michael's program this year, and it was so exciting just to sit and watch, and just watch the game itself, and watch him play, and it brings you back to when you were a kid. My older son Colin plays varsity soccer at St. Joe's. So I never played soccer. So it's actually kind of fun to watch because I don't know what I'm doing or what I'm talking about. So it's maybe I'm probably one of those parents that is yelling or something and has no idea what he's yelling about.
Does this mean you can't official St. Joe's games either?
Yeah, I can't. I didn't do any Catholic games this year. I'm done with the Mount Senior Martin for a while until at least Brennan graduates.
Man, they're missing a good one then.
So, but those Canisius Joe's games were great. Those are fun games to do.
I did see it the last one at St. Joe's. That was a great game.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Canisius, man, they had a great team this year. Yeah. Joe's is on the younger side. I think that they'll be back. Gabe does a great job with his team. He's really stepped in and jumped in 2 feet with the program. You got to think where they were. Yeah. Now where they are 2 years later. Yeah. So they were competitors this year, and they're one of the best teams in Western New York. So from where they were 2 years ago, I think he's doing a pretty good job.
I would have to agree. And speedy recovery to Gabe. I know he was in the hospital a little bit there, was sick. Yep. Glad to hear he came home. And Gabe, we're always thinking about you. I know I sent him a couple of texts with our well wishes. But this time seems to fly. I'm hoping to catch you again in action. I love watching you on the court. You do a great job. Your official crew, all you guys do top-notch work. I feel bad hearing the hecklers behind us, but I think it's just a sign of the times. People just don't realize that you were there, that you played at a very high level. You've officialed. You have a very high rating. You know the game. You know what you're doing out there, and I just don't think a lot of people know that a lot of the officials that do those games, especially those ones under the spotlights, when we get to Buff State, they are bringing the best of the best to official to oversee those games.
Frank, I by watching my son this year, I can understand as a parent, you get into it. Every parent wants to see their kid do well. No matter when it is, whether it's in practice or it's a real game, or even especially if it's a sectional championship. I mean, there is a line, and we all have to draw that line. And I think that it's getting better. I think we've partnered with the school districts, and we've partnered with with how things are done. And I as long as we continue to push that, I think the mutual respect will get better. Because it's better for the game. Because at the end of the day, it isn't about the parents. It's not about Mike O'Brien, the official. It's not about Joe Smith up in the right corner with a big sign because he didn't have anything to do that night and wanted to come to the high school game and heckle the officials. And he doesn't know the rules, or you know what I mean. It's about the athlete. It's about the athlete. Let the athlete do what he or she is supposed to do, and let them without any interruptions. Yeah. And that's what it's about. That's what officiating is. If you can get on that court and supervise that game and not interrupt, that would be great. And nobody knew I was there, that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, it was an absolute pleasure bringing you on today. I hope to have you again. We'll be talking to Benji Bloomin on Wednesday. And actually, we've got Joe Licata, Gil's son, coming up on Tuesday. So if you're out there, we do these interviews on Facebook and YouTube 8 o'clock every night. And I know a lot of people are going to be happy that we had you on, and I'm sure they got a lot out of this interview as much as I did, I'm sure.
Hey, Frank, thanks for what you do, buddy. Appreciate it.
WNYathletics.com is the premier high school sports website in Western New York, providing the best sports coverage of Section 6 and Monsignor Martin leagues. Check out our page for daily game recaps and late-breaking sports news. Our online scoreboards are updated in real time. Never miss a goal or touchdown. Visit WNYathletics.com today or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube.
Welcome back to Sportsline. Two incredible interviews today. Great guests, really. Brett Banker and Mike O'Brien. Everything that those two individuals have done for Western New York high school sports, it's just been exceptional. And Brett has had an amazing career, and it's still going on. And we hope he sticks around for a few more years. If he's got a decade in him, wonderful. If not, we understand he's really done a remarkable job in the KenTon School District. It's day and night from the time I graduated to what it is now. And, he recently was awarded the Dr. James Russin Award for his dedication and commitment to girls ice hockey. So that's another big award that we didn't get the chance to talk about. And then everything Officer O'Brien's done from a high school athlete to the collegiate level, and then his professional career with being a state trooper, and everything that he has to deal with on a routine basis. We say prayers every night for our law enforcement officers. You just never know, and you just gotta keep on saying your prayers for guys like Mike. He's keeping us all safe, and then the job he does on the court, officiating your games, and where that's taken him throughout his officiating career. And there is a call for officials out there, and it's important that if you've ever thought about it, talk to someone like Mike, because he's been there and he does it. And if you're athletes. A lot of you out there watching are athletes, and it's tough to hang up the shoes or the sneakers or what have you and the jersey, but you can still stay a part of it. And if you've got that competitive nature in you, why not become an official? Whether it's ice hockey, football, basketball, baseball, an umpire, whatever, you got to have thick skin, no question about it. You got to have thick skin. But if you are, if you still want to stay competitive and are involved in the sport of your choosing, why not become an official? You get paid. It takes you to some great areas. I mean, Mike went all the way to Chicago for the Mcdonald's All-American game. So you don't necessarily get stuck working high school sports. You could go officiate the collegiate level, and who knows, maybe the pro level. If you have an eye for the game and you understand the specific sport in which you're officiating, then it just makes all the sense in the world. If you got the extra time and you want to make the extra money, why not become an official? And so we're going to be spending a lot of time, WNY Athletics in particular, highlighting the different need for officials in the sports and things of that nature: lacrosse, wrestling, hockey, badminton, volleyball, what have you. Get out there, become an official, and get paid to do it, because without the officials, we don't have the sports. Every now and again when we post the football schedule, you'll see Thursday dates. And then this guy out of left field who hasn't been paying attention will say, well, what's with this Thursday night game? That's ridiculous. Well, this is the situation we're in, and it comes down to officials. There's just not enough. Who knows, before we have Wednesday or Sunday football games. At the rate we're going, we're either going to go to Wednesday, Sunday, or we're going to keep Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and teams aren't going to be able to have enough officials for their games. So we need officials. And, they're not going to put you out there for a Friday Night Lights game your first day in the job. You're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to go work some of those youth athletic league games, the AAU games or the Pop Warner games, and that's where you learn your craft. That's where you get your experience on how to deal with, situations, players and parents, and the full nine yards, coaches. It's not an easy job. If it was, we'd have officials climbing out of the woodwork. It's tough, but you get paid for it, and it's, I think it's a very fulfilling job, and I think it's been a very fulfilling job for Mike, and as he told you in the interview. So if you're thinking about becoming an official, shoot me a message. I'll get you in touch with someone like Mike. This Wednesday we're going to have Benji Bloomin on the program. I'm very much looking forward to Benji and how he's been doing. We had a scare, obviously, just a few months ago at Williamsville North, so I'm interested to hear how Benji's been recovering. Tuesday, Joe Licata, the athletic director from Timon, will be here on Zoom, as well as Dick Gallagher. Mr. Dick Gallagher, who is a good friend of the program and a good friend of yours. Dick's going to spend some time with me, probably just over the phone, but we're going to get an update on how Dick's doing. And later in the week, we've got more athletes. We've got another young lady from Monsignor Martin, St. Mary's will be joining me. I believe I'm going to be having Joe Carlson from Star Point will be joining me, and a bunch of others. But that's what you have to look forward to on Sportsline. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully, earlier in the day, you caught Tom Prince's Coach's Corner program. He's back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow on WNY High School Sportsline.